live episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, SCS Nation, and welcome to another episode, but it's never another episode when I've got these two guys on, of Surviving the Survivor, which has the best guests in all of true crime, and these two, if not the two best, definitely very, very, very high up there, but I would say that they are the two best guests right here. At least my two favorite to close out a Friday with. This comment right here, Fil and Scott, setting me into an absolute crazed, maniacal, possibly homicidal frenzy. I think STS from Tennis Girl 101 being, I'm not even going to say the word. I can't find the thumbnails on my TV. You know, it's funny you bring this up, Tennis Girl, and I love you for this. I need to be careful because everyone's listening to us at all times. Fil and Scott, as you know, my grandfather was killed by the Nazis, and Carm is convinced, to get us off to a very lighthearted start here, that the Nazis are still coming after us. So in this case, it would be big tech. But let's put it this way. YouTube doesn't love you to get too big too fast. So I think they're pulling some fast ones on us. And I talked about this with the COE. And there you go. From Tennis Girl, she is just, I don't know. She is corroborating what we were thinking. So thank you, and we're going to continue to look at this. Look at this from Mish Cavernos, Cape Town, South Africa, wishing everyone a Shabbat Shalom. That would be the Jewish Sabbath, Friday night into Saturday. And my daughter, believe it or not, Fil and Scott, I'm curious, did your kids ever desire to go to church? It's usually not a thing kids want to do, but my daughter's begging me to take me to the synagogue, her to the synagogue tonight. It's because she has her bestie there who will be there. So it's like a play date. Scott Duffy, since you have younger children, was this something you ever encountered where your young children would say, let's please go to church, Daddy?
But that's a hit or miss. I would say no. I don't think I got a please, let's go. But there are times that love it and times that they don't.
For those of us,
same way for me growing up.
Yeah, and for those of you who follow us on Fridays, we'll get to the news in a minute. Just relax. Send your hate mail to Phil. Phil, did you enjoy going to church as a young child? And did your kids ask you to go to church when they were young children?
No, there wasn't any requests. I mean, it was just something that we did. But my growing up, yeah, I enjoyed going to church there, First Baptist Church, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we had a really dynamic preacher, and that kind of reminded me of Jimmy Cagney, just his mannerisms. But he was, and probably most of this audience doesn't know who Jimmy Cagney is, but needless to say, so it was. I had a real good time. Yeah, there was a lot of activities for the kids. The boys were involved in the, I think it was called the Royal Ambassadors, and then the girls they had a little group, and I do not remember what they were called. But so yeah, it was a fun time. We had a gym and athletic events and all stuff like that. So yeah. No, I am.
The whole deal.
I guess the most memorable thing for me, since you've asked the question, was that I was probably about 4 years old, 4 or 5, and was a witness to my father accepting Jesus Christ as his personal savior and making his public profession of faith, and then witnessing his baptism. So I would say that was pretty profound. I didn't realize at the time what was happening, but I knew that it was something that was important. And I think that left an impression upon me, and then, of course, a lasting impression now. So when I reflect back on it, yeah, it's a very, very joyful reflections about my time growing up in church.
That must be fascinating to see your own father being baptized. But Phil just went down Tennis Girl 101. Oh man, I almost didn't post it because I was afraid Joel would go postal. I'm seething on the inside, pretending that I'm perfectly fine. But then there was who just said that they are able to find us just fine. Look at this, Marilyn Foster. We're getting to this in just moments. Hello, originally from Modesto, California, and now only live 5 miles from Mule Creek Prison, Scott's current home. I think if I'm not, is Mule Creek south near San Diego? I'm not 100% sure, but Michelle Pretorius coming to us from South Africa, lest you think it's not a global show. And the Republic of Ireland, look at this, a super chat from Black Witter. Washes Phil's feet and dries them with my hair. Missed you, Phil and Scott. I don't fully understand Black Widow all the time.
Yeah, I understand that reference, I believe.
You do. I don't, but I probably.
I'm not gonna go there, but I understand. I think I understand the reference there.
You're.
Let me ask the question. If I'm on right, is that Martha? Martha from the Bible. I thought it was.
Scott, I'm gonna pull a Scott Duffy right now, and I'm not going to comment.
I have no idea what's going on. It's all going right over my head. I have absolutely no clue.
Hey, go back on your lovely daughter there. That's Vita, right? It's talking about that. Or is it,
who? What? This?
Going to the synagogue.
Oh no. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That was Vita who's asking me tonight. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. You know your daughter. You know the one we were just talking about.
Yeah.
So, are you going to do a bat mitzvah? Is she going to be bat mitzvah?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And we might even do it in the Holy Land. And if I do, I'm going to invite both of you if I do that.
Well, that would be awesome because my wife and I have always wanted to go to the Holy Land.
Oh,
and we just not been able to work out the logistics. But I had a friend of mine that in Houston that his son was bar mitzvah in Israel.
Yeah,
which was really, really cool. Then they did another one back in Houston, which I was able to attend. But yeah, that's a very important time in that.
Yeah, and I will definitely. It's coming up in just a couple of years, so hopefully everybody will be intact and we'll have it. Look at this, Black Widow following this up. I don't even understand what she's talking about, but I love her. Joel, piss off with your spiritual crisis and bring them where they want it. Oh, the church, of course. Yeah, it's not my spiritual crisis. I'm just saying, like, it was interesting.
Well, I think it probably is, right?
No, I enjoy going. Like, it's
Well, I know that after our discussions a couple of years ago, that you did start attending
a little,
on a regular basis, and that on Friday nights that you are Shabbat, and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and my dad passed. I got a little more into it, but it's religious or not. It's just religious Jews on the Sabbath, Friday night into Saturdays. This is not me, but religious Jews don't use lights. They don't use. It's a real day off. They walk. It's a day of like thoughtfulness, relaxation, and it kind of makes sense because I absolutely despise my cell phone. I hate to admit this. I already told Phil and Scott this. I spent the day. I'm still working on my taxes because I've had so much crap with my book. I always pay on time. You can go back and look for the last 30 years. I pay on time, but this year I'm still dealing with it. But I hate my cell phone. Emails never stop coming. Whatever. So I'm pro taking one day off, Friday night to Saturday. In Israel, it's a 6-day work week. They work actually on Sundays, which is nuts too, because I couldn't do that. I'm all about a 4-day work week. But Nesquik milk, Love that we're I hope this is the CEO of Nesquik Milk. Houston resident here. Just watched the entire season of The Interrogator. It was amazing, Phil. Thank you for all you have done for Houston. That's a really nice comment. What do you think of that, Phil?
I thank you very much, Nesquik Milk. That was I very much appreciate that.
Phil, where do I stream that? On Amazon? Do you know?
I don't know. I know it's out
Nesquik,
there.
let me know. Nesquik, let us
I'm not
know.
sure where it may be on YouTube. I don't. I know it's out there though.
The longer we talk non-true crime, the higher our numbers are going, albeit low. I know who James Cagney is.
Did you get a 13-cent check for that?
Yeah. Do you get a 13-cent check, Phil?
What's that?
You get residuals.
Oh no. It would be nice, but no, not in that genre. No, you don't. You get what you get up front, and then that's pretty much it.
I tell my kids, you get what you get. You don't get upset. That's what they say in pre-K.
Obviously, privileged to be able to do it. So I don't. Yeah, that was.
Yeah,
awesome.
Here's some Karen Reed news that broke this afternoon. They wanted to dismiss 2 of the more serious charges, and that was denied by Judge Beverly Cannoni. Of course, Laura, just did a podcast on what the judge said in her motion. I'll be honest, I'm so tired of Karen Reed and the whole world that exists around that case that I'll be back for the second trial, but take a little. Everyone needs some mental health, just a little. That trial brings out the worst in people on every single side. So yeah, I'm not. Should I put up this comment? I feel there's a comment explaining the hair washing. What do I know? It's a whole thing. So yeah, that's what it has to be. Oh, look at this. Glenna wants to be invited to the bat mitzvah too. You want to go to Israel? Absolutely. You know what? All of STS Nation is invited. I was having a weird thought the other day as regarding STS Nation specifically. I'd like to get your thoughts on this, Phil and Scott, and then we'll move into the news, I promise. But I was thinking maybe instead of STS Nation and it's never too late, Karma always says we're all just trying to survive in a rough world, which would make us all survivors. Should I switch it from STS Nation to survivors? Like, hello, survivors. What's happening? Like, you're a survivor, I'm a survivor, we're all survivors. What do you think, Scott? Phil hates it.
Yeah,
The news is breaking. Nesquik got it on Amazon Prime. I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch every single episode of this. And I'm gonna look for, and I'm gonna say I know that not only do I know that guy, but he's on. All right, let's move into the news because I can tell Phil is getting antsy over there. Quick background.
If it's not broke, don't fix it. That's going to be my advice.
Okay, that's good. That's a good piece.
Yeah, look at Boston Sarah. You're on Hulu, Amazon Prime, Sling TV, YouTube. You're on all of these, Phil.
And he's not getting a dime. How dare they?
It's crazy.
Oh well, that's the way that I'm telling you. That's the way that that's the way it works.
Yeah, it's hi from Switzerland. Yeah. Meanwhile, if you're Ben Affleck, and we're gonna get to him today, believe it or not. If you're Ben Affleck, you're getting like a $197,000 check for some horrible movie he did with J-Lo. What was the name of that terrible movie? Like 15, 20 years ago. He's getting checks like left and right. Black Widow gifting 20 Surviving the Survivor memberships. Did I say that I'm sick of anybody? Did I say that? I did not mean to say that. That was just my inner voice maybe coming now. I love you guys. What are you talking about? I just invited everybody to my daughter's bat mitzvah in Israel. Please come along. All right. So we've heard of Scott Peterson. His then wife, Laci, she vanishes of all nights. Christmas Eve 2002. You do the math. That's 22 years ago. Her body washes up in the San Francisco Bay months later in April, so from December to April. And then, very sadly, her unborn child, who they had named Connor, his body is found not far from hers only a couple of days later in that San Francisco Bay. Scott Peterson, now a convicted killer, of course, he's seeking to appeal to the public to call out this, what he's saying is a so-called investigation. He's basically pointing his finger at Phil and Scott, metaphorically, but the actual detectives. He's blaming it all on law enforcement. During the 2004 5-month trial, prosecutors characterized Scott Peterson as a man who regretted becoming a father and killed his wife to get out of his marriage while not having to pay child support. He was sentenced to death by lethal injection, but California Supreme Court overruled that back in 2020. Phil Waters, very broadly speaking, does it aggravate, irritate, annoy you that a person like Scott Peterson from behind the bars in Mule Creek State Prison, is essentially pointing his finger at detectives, your, former cohorts in life, saying, look, they just didn't do enough of an investigation? Does it bother you?
No, not at all. He's got nothing else better to do. He's got a lot of time on his hands. So you got to do something with it, right? This guy's, Peterson is the classic narcissist. He is the classic sociopath. This guy is so self-absorbed, he just about turns himself inside out with his love for himself. So, not surprised, not riled up. Nothing he says means anything to me, and it doesn't affect the quality of life for me one bit. Now, having said that, the things that he does say and the crap that he puts out there does affect Laci's family. And that's where my concern would be, is to this guy who's an evil dude who committed an evil act. And he continues to be the face of evil, and he directs his arrogance toward her parents and her family. And that's disgusting. I think but if I recall, I think the reason he's off of death row is because there was some sort of problem in the sentencing process, if I remember correctly. And that's why am I right about that?
I'll be honest. I thought it was that the governor just vacated a bunch of these death penalties for some.
I don't think so.
It was a technicality. Okay.
This was a ruling from a judge.
Well, I guarantee SCS Nation will know about this. So
yeah, that I believe there was some problem in the punishment phase, and I don't know if there was a juror that was competent. Something. If that's my recollection, and that's why the sentence was commuted to life with no parole. I think that's a horrific decision. Because my recollection is really, this is why we're doing this, and I don't think he was. We've had cases in Texas where the punishment phase has been retried, but I don't think this was a retrial of the punishment phase. I think this was just a judge's ruling based on whatever the problem was in the process at the time. So, I don't have any memory of the cases in Texas that were retried at the punishment phase where the outcome changed. And it's been death penalty cases, of course. So we had a Michael Frada, I think was his name, killed his wife, murdered his wife, and he was a first responder law enforcement guy from Missouri City, and it was a pretty highly publicized case, and he was just like Peterson. Narcissistic, he was a pervert, he was a freaking adulterer, he was just, all those things that are consume a definition of evil. Sociopath, so forth and so on. So
but the point you make is very poignant, because I was going to actually ask you about that, because it's it seems whatever, like he's just chirping from behind bars, but he's really affecting Laci Peterson's family, the Roaches. So
I think he gets his rocks off doing that.
yeah, it's weird. Yeah,
I think he loves it because it brings attention to him.
mm-hmm.
He says outlandish things. He says ridiculous things. This latest interview, he just keeps it going because I think he enjoys getting it out there, and that's why these people should be shut down from any kind of media. I believe they should shut down any kind of media.
Our friend Sky Borgman is the one who directed. She's been on the show a bunch of times, and I was hanging with her at CrimeCon. She's the one that directed the Scott Peterson doc that's on Netflix right now. It's excellent. I have not seen the Peacock one. I'll try to watch it this weekend. Ned Smith reminding us it was Gigli was the crap movie from 2003. Imagine he probably still gets massive checks from that movie. That's amazing. And you're gonna find out what he does with them toward the end of this show. And there's some more. Ben Affleck being away from J-Lo is worth every penny. Someone asking about Phil and his Ferraris. The questions continue. Scott Duffy, does it surprise you in any way? I like to ask you this, but I mean, just look at this. Gigli barely got a half a star. Does it surprise you in any way that this guy who's now been behind bars for 20 years, I mean, it's almost like a coordinated PR thing going on. So you've got 2 documentaries, you've got the LA Innocence Project. You wonder what's happening behind the scenes. But does it surprise you now that he's, again, pointing the finger at you guys saying, look, I'm innocent. I had nothing to do with this.
No, it doesn't surprise me. No.
Does it anger you?
No. I don't pay attention to people like that. I might even catch an episode, but I don't. It's not entertaining to me. I'm all for anybody that's been wrongly convicted somehow, some way. Especially, I think in the earlier days of our justice system, where you had we used to rely a lot upon eyewitness accounts, and then of course time has proven that eyewitness accounts don't always do so well, and anybody that fights to help somebody who has been wrongly convicted, all for it, right? But somebody who's getting a lot of attention through a lot of production media, and it's just no, not for me.
Phil Waters just disappeared himself temporarily. And I'm gonna bring this up. This is actually a great question. It's very morbid, so I'm gonna just warn everyone before I bring it up. But the COE and I were talking about this, and I meant to look it up, but I didn't. But did I miss the part where they said how Connor was found somewhere else? He was found a few days later. Scott Duffy, do you happen to know, or is it just the fact that she was pregnant? I think just being in the water for that length of time, things happen. There's bodily fluids and gases that are emitted and all sorts of things. So I truly don't know how he was literally separated from her. Phil might know. Do you have an idea?
Yeah. I don't know, but I do remember hearing, because of in his defense, that there was a satanic cultural whatever it was going around somewhere around him, and these these sadistic satanic killings and so forth. So it's possible, that the baby was cut out, and thereby, he couldn't have done it. It was these satanic cult.
But Phil, the question was, do we know how Connor ended up washing up a couple of days after Laci, if she was pregnant with him? That was the question that was being posed. Is that just part of?
You mean this condition?
Well, she was pregnant, but his little body washed up after her. So like, how did he get
Well,
out of her? That's the question.
I think that could be explained by the times in the water and no telling what kind of sea life got to the bodies. So I don't find that to be unusual. I think Scott's right. There was something about some satanic group. The only satanic person in this whole episode is him. So, and I think they're alluding to now this new evidence they've got supposedly is some burglaries that occurred across the street or something from their house.
Sir.
DNA checked and yada, 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 and all this other crap. So, and I think the judge has approved the checking of maybe one item for DNA stuff. And I think it's not going beyond that. But yeah, I mean, look, a guy like this in this position that he's found himself in because of what he did is going to come up with all sorts of outlandish things. We see that with all these types of cases, the Menendez brothers, Murdaugh, all these knuckleheads that do these horrific acts on their own families. They're trying to explain away the evil act that they committed by coming up with these crazy stories. So there you go.
By the way, I stand corrected. It was Connor who was found first. STS Nation is letting me know that. And then it was Laci a couple of days later. Lindsay Shea explaining it too. It's because of her decaying. This is very morbid, but basically it was from being in the water for so long. Connor found before Laci. There you go. Samantha here letting us know that creepy is Scott saying in his recent interview when asked, why do you still talk to Amber after Laci was missing? He said, I wanted to bring my family back. Makes no sense at all. Idiot. I have to agree with you there. I watched the Netflix docs, and the minute, they start talking about how the fact that he, prior to her going missing, he went out and secretly purchased this little boat. And then he was also, Scott Duffy, he didn't just buy a little boat. He was searching the tides, the movement of the tides, and at what time. That's it, Scott Duffy. If I'm the FBI agent working the case, guilty, I'm handcuffing him and I'm putting him away. There is no trial. He's going to prison for life. What do you think about that fact that he was checking out the tides?
Yeah, no different than today, especially with digital media and then the ability to analyze it. It all goes to the puzzle and putting all those pieces together circumstantially, and of course whatever physical evidence there is. But it's a lot, and Phil and I and all our law enforcement counterparts who have done these for many, many years, you build your common sense case, and then it's one thing after another thing after another thing, and you just keep putting those pieces together. So it's not by coincidence, and so be it. So yeah, you're searching. It's what's in his head. It's what's in his planning stages. It's how to get away with it. And damn, the bodies actually showed up and didn't forever remain lost at sea, which was his hope. So
Do you think if the bodies were never found, they still would have prosecuted him, Scott?
I being that so much time has gone by, would they, if Phil can speak to it a lot better, but I can tell you in my area, no body prosecutions are tough, right? But I think with a good investigative team, with a smart and adventurous prosecutor, when all said and done, I think the result would be the same today. Might have been a little bit more delayed.
I never even pondered the question. Beach Bum wants to know, Scott, are you drinking a White Claw? You must confess.
So I'm a little under the weather. Apologize. So I have it's
a coffee,
lozenges and cold brew.
It's coffee good for you when you're sick?
But I do like a White Claw. That might be
I-
post show.
What's the matter, Scott? I feel bad now. I didn't ask how you were feeling. You down with not COVID, I hope, that I
It's one
catch
of
every
those
other week.
things. It's just one of the. Well, I'm staying my distance from people.
Mm.
So everybody may want to hit the mute button so they don't get any germs.
Phil Waters, would he have been prosecuted if those bodies never reemerged from the water? By the way, I never heard of this term, and I'm glad, but it's called a coffin birth, expulsion of fetus by decomposing body. You learn something new every day. Never heard of the Phil, in all your years as a homicide detective, have you heard of this phrase, a coffin birth?
No.
Wow, amazing. But would he have been convicted or even tried if these bodies never popped out of the water?
Well, that's pure speculation on our part, right? But I would have to say, in any case, it's all about the evidence, the strength of the evidence, and where the evidence led the detectives. So I would say I've had no body cases that, in fact, I got one right now that's pending prosecution. So I would have to say that in this particular case, of course, this was all a circumstantial case, but the circumstantial evidence was so strong, sometimes better than I've seen in direct evidence cases, that I would think that even if they had not recovered the bodies, that they had enough circumstantial evidence to go forward with the prosecution. Of course, that's a decision that has to be made at the time, and it's just fortunate that they got the physical evidence in terms of the bodies washing up, which determined that they were in fact dead. So that would have been the only issue there, I think, is that, and there is a point in time where there is a declaration of death, and again, that's based on where the evidence was going to lead them. So I would think that even if they didn't have those bodies, that they would have pursued prosecution, because there was just a lot. Just what you've mentioned. The things that happened, the circumstances under which he did certain things leading up to her disappearance. Who else? This stuff with Satanists and the stuff with burglars. Who else really had motivation to do that? And it's him. So all the roads lead to him.
And I think the fact that it was so high profile, there would have been so much pressure on the government to try the case. Boston Sarah here says, bought the boat on the 9th of December, tells Amber Fry the same day that he quote unquote lost his wife and the family didn't know he bought the boat. Yeah, it's crazy. We're going to get to this from Shell. Can we talk about Scott's sister-in-law, Janey? Why is she so obsessed with Scott's innocence? That's a great question. Let's go ahead right here. I've got a piece of sound. We got some sound here. They're fairly short because we're allowed to use them from Peacock with courtesy. So here's the first bite. I have no idea what he's saying here. Here we go.
To go home that day, I was staggered by it.
Wow, that's a short bite, COE. Let's play this other one. Let me replay this here.
I was expecting to go home that day. I was staggered by it.
Went home. I was staggered by it. Let's see what he says here. This is another sound
so
bite.
angry at the media because the reports just weren't.
This is obviously from the doc that Today Show did a thing on it. So these are the bites that are usable. Here's another one.
I was so angry at the media because the reports just weren't factual. I strive not to show any emotion in the court because I didn't want to, see them break me.
Scott Duffy, he's blaming the media here. He's blaming investigators. He's blaming the media. In high-profile cases, is that something you see, convicted killers it was the media's fault. They blew everything out of proportion. And
I mean, I don't even think you have to say high profile. I think anytime that a defense, and it's often used where if you cannot defend the case because your client didn't do it, you go after everything else. You poke holes in the law enforcement's investigation. You tear down the credibility of a particular investigator. And so, I mean, this falls into the classic. I've seen it many times where, you just attack everything, but I didn't do it. And a claim of innocence and should also go with everything else that common sense and makes sense with regards to I didn't do it. I'm being falsely accused, and everything you're being told is not true. And so ultimately, does it make sense or it doesn't make sense? And just the way Phil had said, circumstantial cases, and I've been involved in circumstantial cases, are some of the best, because the doer, him or herself, have created all these roads that ultimately lead back to yourself, as opposed to zip it, talk to nobody, don't search anything, don't go anywhere, don't date anybody. It's an amazing thing. And so thereby, what do you have? You attack the media, you attack the prosecutor, you attack the investigators,
anyone but
and
yourself.
anyone but yourself. And is he saying I didn't do it later? But the key is it's everybody else, and I didn't want them to break me. That's ludicrous.
Yeah. From Mr. Crowley here, his line. Go ahead, Phil.
Just for clarification, that first quote where he's talking about he was going to go home and hang out or whatever he was going to do, and he was
staggered by it.
Staggered by it? What is he staggered by? The bodies being found, or what is he being staggered by?
Yeah.
The bodies being found?
Good question. Well, this is interesting. So in the Netflix doc, and I have not seen the Peacock one yet, his line to Amber about being at the Eiffel Tower. So this is so crazy because you see the video and he's talking to her. He's literally running, telling her that he's running around Paris at the Eiffel Tower, and he's at a vigil. And so Mr. Crowley says that this has creeped me out for years. Scott hasn't changed one bit. I mean, Phil Waters, what kind of person under the assumption, and he was convicted, so I will say under the assumption that he did in fact murder his wife, he's now telling a woman he's adultering with that he's in Paris. I have guilt if I don't put like the orange juice back in the fridge and I leave it out on the counter for 30 minutes. Like, what is going on in this guy's mind that he's just so effortlessly able to lie about things?
Well, it's no assumption that he did it. He did it. He's been convicted for doing it. He's been convicted for doing it. So he did it. It's not an assumption here. He did it.
Thank you. Yes.
And in terms of what he was doing here, this is just furthering the lie and the plan, right? This is just this. Gosh, what a display of how despicable he is. This guy is devious. He's a liar. He is, and he plans these events. These aren't something that just all of a sudden it comes to him. I'm going to tell this story. These are planned, contrived conversations that he's having with this woman that he was committing adultery with on Laci. And so I'm not surprised by any of this stuff. And the guy, like I said, classic sociopath, classic narcissist, classic manipulator. The guy, if you want to do a study on a person like this who has these attributes of evil conduct and evil thoughts, he's the guy. He would be and that may be why. I mean, it is a fascinating case. I mean, when I look at it as a detective, and I'm sure Scott looking at it as an investigator, it is fascinating.
Yeah.
And these are the kind of cases that homicide detectives get into. These are the kinds of cases that make what we do worth it. Not that there's a barometer on cases, but these types of cases where you have a suspect that is so corrupt and has absolutely no moral foundation at all, and would do something like this just for their own selfish, self-absorbed purposes. These are the kinds of cases that homicide cops are always ecstatic about bringing to the proper conclusion, a successful prosecution. So this is one of these cases, and now that he's trying to attack the detectives that put him where he needs to be because of what he did, doesn't surprise me at all. I'm whatever money that may be being brought out of these different documentaries and so forth, I'm going to assume that those are going to Laci's family. So he's not profiting off of it.
I'm not sure about that. I could try to find that out, actually. Yeah. I hope it is. I hope it's going.
I know most states have laws.
Yeah, that you can't profit.
These criminals, convicted criminals, cannot profit off of their crime. So if there is any money to be made in this, and then money's not always the answer, but I'm hoping that at least it's going to Laci's family.
By the way, someone suggested we refer to the killer as SP, as to not invoke his name, but also because we have our beautiful blue Scott here in his blue hoodie. And why call Scott by the same name as SP, who's a killer? I like this. So we'll call him SP from now on. And we'll call, look at Ned Smith already breaking the rules. SP, Scott Duffy, did a horrible dye job on his hair. Guilty as, now she's talking like me. I feel like you've had your hair dyed platinum blonde at some point, Scott Duffy. Have you? I feel like you have.
Maybe for Halloween at one point. I did a lot of dressing up at Halloween. But no, I have not.
And Phil Waters, would you ever, he's set to have a man bun in prison now. Would you ever put your hair up in a man bun, Phil Waters? Look at him.
Would I ever do that?
What do you think of man buns, Phil?
Bite your tongue. I would just tell you that I'm sure he's got a man bun, and it's just something for his cellmate to hold on to.
Bill Davis, friend of the show. He's always in here. He's kind of like low key. Bill Davis is probably a woman. I don't trust any of these male names in here, like Ned Smith. But people also forget the Diane Sawyer interview. Phil Waters, this is directed at you. I think this is interesting. They forget the Diane Sawyer interview Scott did while Laci was still missing. During the interview, Sawyer asked him what he loved most about Laci, and he tripped up and said she was. Phil Waters, during your interviews, not interrogations, but interviews, does it happen somewhat frequently that a killer will screw up and put someone in the past tense unknowingly, and you pick up on it?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's something that we would listen for in an interview when it's a domestic violence situation, certainly, where there is it's not a stranger on stranger thing. And you're listening to those nuances. And when you hear them referring to that loved one in the past tense, now that's huge. That's huge, because that's something that kind of comes out. That's, I guess, what people refer to as a Freudian slip, right? That's something that comes out. They're not thinking about what they need to say. They're thinking about what has happened. And so it's just natural for someone to say that if that person is no longer with us, then you're going to use the term was. Or they may not. I'd be curious to see in those interviews how many times he said her name. That's the other thing that will stand out in a domestic violence case.
In other words, they don't use the name.
They do not use the name. So they will refer to them as she or my wife, or they will use any other term that connects them to that person other than their name. And that becomes, I've seen scenes where scene of domestic violence and the wife is murdered and there's a bag over her head. And what's the reason? Well, because the person who committed it, which is going to be a family member, didn't want them looking at them. So there's a lot of strange nuances that go on when it's a family member on family crime, or if it's personal to them. So that nuance there of she was, that's pretty big, especially in that setting with Diane Sawyer, who's shouldn't be a threat to him. He agrees to this interview, and that is his Freudian slip. So she asks a question, and his answer to it is, well, she was so-and-so. That's very, very telling. And I'm sure detectives are watching these interviews before, whatever he was doing in the media, and watching listening for what they're saying and listening to their responses to questions. So that's all part of the overall evidence that's gathered in an investigation like this.
And do they avoid using the actual name like Laci because it's too personal? They just want to keep them at a distance then? Is that it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, they're trying to separate themselves from what they did. So if they depersonalize that person by not referring to them by name, because names are important. Scott, would agree with me that in that interview room, the first thing you want to do is introduce yourself. And I don't introduce myself as Detective Waters, the Houston Police Homicide Division. I introduce myself as Phil. And you can call me Phil. And what would you like me to call you? And they will tell me. Because I want to call them what they are most familiar with being called. And that sets up the relationship. So sure, names are important. And you become personal with somebody. Why? Because you know their name. I mean, when I walk into a hotel or whatever I'm doing, if I'm dealing with a person who's providing me a service, I always look at their name tag, and I always refer to them by their name. And I'm always struck by I can see an instant change in just our very short 15, 20-second relationship. When I refer to them by name, I get a smile and I get a warmer response. So names are important. So I would be curious to see if in any of the interviews he did, if he actually referred to her by name, especially later on.
This is fascinating. Whenever I meet somebody, I never remember their name. I will never forget a face. Like if I meet someone today and I get a good look at their face, I'll remember them 20 years from now. But I will never remember a name. But Phil Waters, I imagine you remember names because you're a listener.
I'm pretty good at remembering names, but then there's sometimes where I just don't. It kind of depends on the relationship, whatever it was. But it's important. It's important. And if I don't, I tell you what, and if I don't remember a name and I'm talking to somebody, I'll ask them again.
Yeah.
I'll tell them, look, I'm so sorry, but what was your name? And they will tell me, and then we crank it back up again. So names are important.
Everyone, if there's one thing to take away from the show, names are important. As a matter of fact, my own beloved mother, she's done this a few times. They do a Holocaust documentary. It's done by students every year where they interview Holocaust survivors. But every year it's got the same title. It's like, I guess, volume 1 bunch. But it's called Names, Not Numbers. There you go. Names are important because of the Auschwitz numbers, the tattoo numbers. So there you go. Names, not numbers. From Annie K to Scott Duffy, how can the knockoff LA Innocence Projects? So for those of you who do not know, the Innocence Project is an organization that tries to help wrongly convicted offenders. But there's a LA version of it, which is the group that is trying to help Scott or SP over so many wrongly convicted. Scott Duffy, what about this? I mean, they had many choices. I mean, I'm sure there's many people in the LA County jail that are probably sitting there wrongly, awaiting trial or in the state prisons. Why pick Scott Peterson? Do you have any idea?
No, I don't have any idea. It's in these organizations, they're good organizations. They do a deep dive. They have their own investigators where they try to figure out, hey, is this something that's just somebody who's reaching out, taking us, because they don't want to waste their time. They are invested into finding the wrongly convicted. It doesn't mean that there are people associated with that have ulterior motives and maybe are a little over the top in their pursuits. But I'd be interested to see why they've chosen this case. Something I'd like to know what that something is that popped out at them to say, hey, this is something that deserves a closer attention that perhaps nobody has looked at. So yeah, I'm confused. I haven't seen anything that other than that van that was so closely associated with. I think it was in the Netflix portion of it, where there was a burned out van that was kind of part of this cult gang, and that she was supposed to have been in that van, and thereby they'll find her DNA, and then of course, like out of the other things, police might have looked at it and said, but that's not connected. We're not going to spend all these resources. There's nothing to tie her to that van other than it was found in the vicinity. But years later, you throw that out there, and then people start saying, oh, well, why wasn't it checked and so forth? It's just another thing to throw at police. So I'm not sure if it was something beyond that van that called them to take up this case. But yeah, it is somewhat interesting, because from the cases that I have seen, at least in my area, where the Innocence Project pick up cases, that they do a deep dive with their own investigators before they even make a decision to pursue a case.
Let me make a point about that.
Yeah, please do. And we're going to get to the van in a moment.
Scott referred to these as good organizations, and I have to respectfully disagree. I have dealt with the Innocence Project people directly, and I can tell you my experience has been, now I will tell you, I'm in support of any evidence that comes forward that will free an innocent person. I'm all for it. Absolutely. And I have been involved in investigations now on the defense side where the evidence has led me to that person either being not convicted or the charges being dismissed because they didn't do it. But I will tell you, my experience with the Innocence Project was that you got to remember that they have an agenda. And they're going to forward that agenda. And my own personal experience with them has been, in a particular investigation, involved a cop killer. And I knew one of the investigators that they were using, and he had a very questionable past when he was at an agency that I worked for before. but they were using him. And we came around because they picked this project up. They got it to the point where the district attorney's office had made a decision, the district attorney, to reinvestigate the case based on the writ that this convicted defendant had submitted. And so we did. We were brought in, and my partner and I, he had been involved in the original investigation, and we went and redid the whole investigation. We went to prisons where a couple of the witnesses were currently residing in to find out if there was any change to their, because the stuff we were getting from the Innocence Project investigators was that these witnesses had all recanted their testimony, which got this one guy convicted, which was part of getting him convicted. So we went and we interviewed all those people. Now, I will say this. The district attorney's office made the mistake of sending lawyers to go talk to these people first before they got us involved. And so when we got to talk to these people, there were mistakes made by lawyers on both sides of this in terms of what they were asking them, how they were asking them, and the answers they were expecting to get from them. And all it did was it made these witnesses angry toward the DA's office. Now, the other side of that coin is when we went and talked to these folks, we found that the investigators from the Innocence Project had come in there and had already fashioned a statement for these guys, presented it to them and said, sign it. And they did. And so when we got back, and now we're interviewing them, this is going to be the third time these people have been interviewed, or the fourth time by the time we get to them, because they were interviewed the first time when this thing happened 12 years ago when it occurred. Then they were interviewed by the Innocence Project people. Then they were interviewed by the DA's office, and they were interviewed by us. So this is the fourth turn, the fourth bite at this apple. When we got through talking to each one of these witnesses, and there were no exceptions, we were all told the same thing. Innocence Project people showed up with statements. They were allowed to kind of look at them a little bit, but the important thing was we need you to sign this, and they did. I don't know what was promised. I don't know any of that, but I do know that that is the way that laid out. Then the DA's office, the lawyers went and talked to them, and they just pissed them off even more because of the way they spoke to them. When we came back around for the fourth interview, the comment that was made almost to a witness was, why didn't they send you guys to talk to us before? Because nobody has talked to us like you guys are. So the Innocence Project people, when they do the right thing, I'm all for it. But I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. The agenda is what it is. And they will do anything to try to get somebody off of death row or get them out of prison. And that's the problem I have with them. There's just because of my own involvement with that particular group of people.
That's interesting.
And I would say, I would totally agree. I would totally agree with that. And I would almost say when you have a group that's supposed to be above the fray and taking on cases, just like law enforcement, have no preconceived ideas. And when you have people, and that's why I said there are people who are involved in anything like that, that could be over the top, and they have preconceived ideas. They're not investigators. They're going in with an agenda, and absolutely that's wrong, and that does no service. It pisses everybody off. So I would totally agree with that.
A quick weather break here. Non-Rev Life Maui, and also my good friend K9 Catherine. She was asking, Phil, are you guys getting any rain yet? Maui is cloudy, small rain. Are you getting bad weather? Because apparently there's a tropical depression coming over Hawaii that I did not know about.
Yeah, there's a couple of cyclones coming in from the east. It's going to hit probably on the east side of the island.
Cyclones sound much scarier than hurricanes to me. But go ahead, Phil. Are you worried?
Well, I'm not really worried. We've gotten some rain here, and it's cloudy, and we're getting the wind picking up, so we're kind of feeling it. But I think it's going to hit mainly on the east side of, which is going to be around Hilo in that area down in there, which is about 2 hours away from us. But I mean, we'll get some residual stuff, I'm sure. And Maui, I mean, I'm looking at Maui right here. So, yeah, what they're getting over there, we're getting over here.
He's a lucky man. Bill Davis. I am a man. I use Bill Davis because my real name is really unique. In fact, I'm the only person in the USA with my actual name. That's amazing. I'd like to know what the real name is. survivingthesurvivor@gmail. I won't tell anybody. Ned Smith, what's your real name? Analytical Blarney AB, friend of the show. The real question tonight is, when are we going to see video of Scott Duffy breakdancing? I'm still waiting unless I missed it. He's going to be in the Olympics in 2028. He can't show his hand before then. There's another piece of sound. Here's the last one. Is probably going to be 3 seconds like the other two, but I have my own quotes, and then we're going to jump back here. Let's watch this.
You killed Laci because you didn't want to be married and you didn't want to be a father.
That's so offensive. It's so disgusting.
I certainly regret cheating on Laci.
Why did you keep talking to Amber Fry after Laci disappeared?
I was searching for my family, stay in contact with Amber, I thought, and she wouldn't get into the picture, complicate, ruin the search.
Let's watch that one more time. This guy's hair is looking dopey, but it's amazing. I'll say this. The guy comes off likable, which is why he's a narcissist. He doesn't come off as a killer necessarily, but let's watch this again. I'm curious to get your guys' take on this. Scott Duffy, you're getting the first crack after we watch again.
That you killed Laci because you didn't want to be married and you didn't want to be a father.
That's so offensive. It's so disgusting.
I certainly regret cheating on Laci.
Why did you keep talking to Amber Fry after Laci disappeared?
I was searching for my family, stay in contact with Amber, I thought, and she wouldn't get into the picture, complicate, ruin the search.
Scott Duffy, I mean, that last part makes zero sense, I think,
Yeah.
but I just want to come. But what's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, I go back to the original, and of course these are all edited, so I'd love to hear the full unedited version. The fact that he's being
You got to buy Peacock. You got to get the stream, man. I'm gonna do it.
I got it, so that's gonna be on the list.
Oh, good.
The when he says that is so offensive and disgusting, those are very typical distraction. You put it out, how dare anybody question my love, my loyalties and whatnot, and so that's just it. I would agree with Phil. It'd be interesting to see in everything that he's been recorded. How many times does he say Laci? Now, of course, many, many, many years later, and I'm sure he's done his own research. He probably has also cued himself in to say, "Hey, I better mention her name a few times."
It's funny. I didn't notice that, but of course you did because you're FBI and I'm not.
Yeah, but it's and of course that last statement, I don't even know where to begin with that. It's just very just nothing makes sense. It's truth is very simple. We have a saying, and I'm sure Phil you use this. If you're lying, you're convincing people, and if you're telling the truth, you're simply conveying. It's very simple. It's very sweet. It's very short. But if you're lying, you go on and on and on, and you think you're making sense, but it's not making sense, and you're convincing people. Believe me. And
What were the two words he used to describe how he felt when they were accusing him of whatever?
Let's watch this one more time.
You killed Laci because you didn't want to be married and you didn't want to be a father.
That's so offensive. It's so disgusting.
I certainly regret cheating on Laci.
Why did you keep talking to Amber Fry after Laci disappeared?
I was searching for my family, stay in contact with Amber, I thought, and she would get into the picture, complicate, ruin the search.
Okay. So he used the words offensive and disgusting, right?
Yes.
What he did was he just described himself.
Fascinating. He's so smug, like talking with such
When was this interview
confidence.
conducted?
Very recently. I mean, in the
Okay.
last bunch of months.
Yeah. So
Obviously,
he's just this is for him this is just more of the same. This is practice. This is rehearsed. I'd be curious. Yeah, if I ever watch this program, I'm going to be curious to watch these interviews and see if he does say her name. I don't think he said her name in here. Did he in this clip?
I don't know why, but I'm curious what other inmates think of him, but that's just me. But here's another quote. Scott Duffy. This is not, we don't have sound of these because these are too long, but he says, this is Scott Peterson in this documentary. There was a burglary across the street from our home, and I believe that Laci went over there to see what was going on, and that's when she was taken. And he goes on here, Scott Duffy says, there are so many instances where there was evidence that didn't fit the detective's theory that they just ignored. People want the answer they believed in to be the answer.
Okay.
SP? I mean, Scott Duffy? SD?
yeah, so it's more of the distraction. It's go over there. You're leading people on wild goose chases. Well, people being the investigators on wild goose chases, as opposed to, okay, that when a spouse or a significant other, it's going to be a domestic related crime here. So, hey, somebody's missing or somebody's been murdered, and we're coming to talk to you. When's the last time? An innocent person is going to be, I know I'm the number one suspect. So what do I need to do in order to take myself out of that, so you then can go find the killer? And so what he's doing is, hey, go over there. There's lots of crime in my neighborhood. There's a burglary. There's this. There's that. If I remember, there was a dog. Wasn't it? Their dog was roaming around, and so it leads up to, hey, you need to look elsewhere other than me, as opposed to doing everything in your power to say, what do I need to do? My loved one, my child, my family, the ones that I lived for are gone, and what do I need to do? And I'll do it all day and every day until we've come to an agreement that I'm not your person and somebody else is. So it's right off the bat. It's very defensive, and he goes off on the offensive to attacking law enforcement, to say they're just not following the leads. They did. They followed, and everything they followed took them right back to his doorstep.
Scott Duffy, I'm thinking about something while you're talking. I'm wondering if I'm a narcissist, because I'm wondering something about myself while you're speaking about Scott Peterson. But what I was thinking about was, at one point I told the COE, I was, everyone in Miami has like these wraps on their cars. So they'll buy like a Ford Explorer, but then or a Maserati is probably a better example. And then they'll wrap it in like a matte black. So it looks matte black. So I said to the COE, screw the matte black. Let me just get a giant Surviving the Survivor logo that says best guest in true crime. And she's like, I'll literally divorce your ass. You'll never see me again. Because I'll be going to school pickup, doing. And the guy who I was talking to, this is what he does. And he's like, oh, you have no idea how like great the advertising. Everyone will see it. Now I'm starting to want to do it again as I'm telling you the story. But long story short, you're talking about Scott Peterson, and I have to admit, I went out. We got a new car, and it came with an I Love Metro Ford plate frame. And then I had this idea, you know what? I'm going to order a custom plate frame. And my plate frame says Surviving the Survivor, Best Guess in True Crime. And it's sort of a little bit of everything I wanted, because now anyone who's behind me in traffic is going to say, what is Surviving the Survivor, Best Guess in True Crime? So there's two things to this. If you see me in South Florida, that is my car, and the COE has one on her car. I put it on there. But am I just a giant narcissist that I would go to this length, not get the wrap, but get the license plate frame? Did
you get rid of the Tesla that short circuited on you when you drove it into the floodwaters?
That was a minivan. It wasn't a Tesla. The minivan is dead. Yeah, and I replaced it with a Ford Bronco that I love.
Involved in that?
No, that's the other car. The COE. She drowned the minivan.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, Bill Davis, it's fine. Scott, I'm coming back to you. It's fine, Joel. My real name is Bailey Tolson Dwiggins. I go by my middle name, Tolson. I'm a huge fan of Surviving the Survivor. Thank you, Bill. I'm a big fan of yours because I see you here all the time. I appreciate your support.
What is that? Is that English?
I don't know what. Bill Davis, let us know what's the origin. Is it Irish, Scottish? I don't know. I would say like Scottish, maybe one of those.
It looks like English or Scottish.
Yeah. Scott Duffy, am I a giant narcissist for getting custom license plate frames? Not plates, but frames.
No, I think it's good marketing.
You want me to send you one? Will you put it on your car? Would you put one on
my address? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, you can send me one about the time you send me your book.
Yeah, by the way, I forgot to send Phil a copy of the book, and he let me know that right before the show, and I got a little scared. So
and then you can, if you were asking me about residuals, well, I'm getting as much in residuals as I get paid for doing this. So,
Phil, if I got you a custom plate frame, would you put it on both of your Ferraris?
No.
Damn it. Look at this.
I might put it on my wife's car. But
okay, all right, I'll do that.
It's in the garage.
She has Alexa, so she's got a nice.
I know how to get marriages in trouble. All right, so back to this. So Phil Waters, just continuing on here in this doc, and then I'm getting sick of talking about this, so we're going to switch gears in a few moments. But a couple of witnesses came forward and said they saw this suspicious van right in the neighborhood, and then none of these people are named, by the way. This is said van right here, the creepy pedophile looking thing going on here. But another witness, Phil Waters, allegedly came forward and said that they saw a pregnant woman being forced into a van. When this news broke, the former Modesto police detectives, whose names are John Bueller and Al Brachini, and Steve Cohen's going to try to get them. He said, this is BS, and that Scott Peterson is just not about the van. The van is there, but he's like, look, they're just distracting, putting a hand up here while doing something over there. But let me ask you, on a serious note, there's apparently some blood evidence found in this van. I don't know where we stand with testing, if SDS Nation knows anything, but there was a hearing about this. What's your obligation as an investigator now to go back and find that what the source of that blood is and why it's in this van?
You talking to me?
I'm talking to you. No. I mean, what would happen if they tested this? This is a huge what if. What if you test this blood and it's Laci Peterson's? Does that change the whole world?
Well, of course it would, but I don't know the scope of, I don't know the evidentiary links to this van, and I don't know what was done or what was not done. I would think that if they got this van early on or whenever, and there was some blood evidence in it, that the DNA would have been tested, the blood would have been tested, and the results would have either linked it or it would have separated it. So I just don't know what the process was or the outcome.
And I forgot this, by the way. I knew this at one point, but forgot to mention it. But I'm glad Lee did. The burglars turned themselves into police because of the publicity of Laci's disappearance, because they didn't want to be associated. Burglary was 2 weeks before Laci went missing, so that's very important information too.
Well, there's some burglars with some integrity, right? There you
go. Someone's saying to highlight Space Coast comment. I haven't seen it. I missed it. I'm sure he's poking some fun here. Anyway, this is the van. So a few more things and then we're moving on, I promise. So Scott Duffy, some more quotes here from Scott Peterson. He admits that the affair was horrible. And he says, and I quote, "I was a total a-hole to be having sex outside our marriage." He then goes on as to why he's speaking. He says, "If I have a chance to get the reality out there, if I have the chance to show people what the truth is, and if they're willing to accept it, maybe that takes a little bit of hurt off my family. And that would be the biggest thing that I can accomplish right now." He wants to take the hurt off his family.
His family.
His family, not the Roaches. His
what
family.
A jackass!
I mean, Phil, if you're interviewing, the question's for Scott, but Phil, real quickly, if you're interviewing this guy and he said this to you post conviction, because you have to get more information, right? Like, how do you control yourself? You just sit there and go, okay.
Well, you just do. I mean, you just do. I mean, Scott and I both know that the place to show some sort of emotion based on what you're hearing in the interview room is not the place to do it. So that's where our experience, our training, our discipline to the art of the interview starts to attach. So,
I forgot you guys are real professionals, but Scott Duffy, he says, I'm just because I'm not. So he says, "I was a total a-hole to be having sex outside our marriage."
That's the only truth he has stated yet.
Scott, I mean, what do you make of this? And then he literally says, "If I have a chance to get the reality," by the way, he says reality, not truth, which is, I don't know, a little weird. Yeah. If I have the chance to show people what, then he says what the truth is, and they're willing to accept it, maybe that takes a little bit of hurt off of my family. Your reaction to this?
Yeah, I mean, just the way you said it, Joel. Take a little bit of hurt off my family. So nothing to do with Laci, nothing to do with his child Connor, nothing to do with her family, who is suffering much. Scott's family, other than, hey, this is it bothers us that our son has done this. So as opposed to, I haven't heard anything in that that says that the killer's still out there. And wouldn't it be nice to have the real killer or killers in custody? No, it's all about him, and it's been in, some 20 some odd, what is it, 20 years?
20 years, yeah. Scott Duffy, if this guy, I mean, for some crazy reason, it's not going to happen. Let's say he gets released because of whatever. You think he'd commit another crime? I mean, is that just part of his nature? And by crime, I mean murder another woman.
Well, it's what's the motive for killing your wife and your child, and then of course in the manner. I mean, you're talking about it. It was a brutal murder, and then to go to great lengths to dispose of the bodies. So I know there are people attracted to that he's probably got quite a few love letters and so forth, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't even want to go down that hypothetical because he is where he is.
I'm sure he has plenty of women that have.
Well, by comparison, the stuff that he is saying, O.J. Simpson made similar comments.
Yeah.
He spent the rest of his life searching every golf course in the United States for the killer of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman.
Yeah.
So these guys, and so what's interesting about that is, and these comments that he's made, I just want to throw this in, that these people that are like this, whether it's this jackass or whether it is OJ, and put all of you, they're narcissistic, they're self-absorbed, they are sociopaths. Now, so the difference for me is in a psychopath and a sociopath is a sociopath commits an act of violence that they feel justified in committing. The psychopath does the same thing as a sociopathic act, but they enjoy what they're doing. So, and that's just a simple definition for me. So all of you experts out there, don't get your panties in a wad about what I just said. So the takeaway here is that Peterson is a sociopath.
Yeah.
And when and another term for that is a-hole.
Yeah.
So
what's OJ? Because I mean, people forget before Nicole and Ron Goldman, OJ was one of the most beloved, charismatic guys there was. I mean, the guy was doing Hertz commercials. He was doing Monday Night Football. I mean, I lived in upstate New York.
Anybody's capable of any act under the right set of circumstances.
There you go. Bill Waters. Bill Davis. Dwiggins is actually Irish. It's the anglicized version of the Gaelic O'Duba. I'll leave that one for Blackwater. Tolson is Middle English. There you go. Very cool name. Bill Davis is hilarious because it's just so all-American. What a coincidence that his dead wife and child were found where he went fishing. What actual man pretends they're in Paris on New Year's Eve when they're at a vigil for their pregnant missing wife? He has no remorse for any of it. From Julie Frew, I'd have to agree. One of our phenomenal mods. Thank you. Sociopaths are made, psychopaths are born. From Ned Smith, always learning something from my amazing community here. The last thing, Scott Duffy, people were asking about this. So he's got a sister-in-law named Janey Peterson. She, I think, went back to law school because she's so obsessed with his case, says he's been 100% wrongfully convicted of that murder. And she is quoted in this documentary as saying, Scott lied about cheating, and that was upsetting. But he wasn't charged with infidelity. He was charged with murder. Is this just blind ignorance by a family member that doesn't want to accept this? But this is also a sister-in-law. Of course, my mind goes to a very bad place. Like, I hope there was nothing going on between the two of them. But why, in your opinion, do you think? And by the way, someone said there's a woman who went missing at the same time Scott Peterson from the same college at the same time Scott Peterson was in college, which is interesting. I'd never heard that. I'm not 100% sure that's true. But Scott Duffy, why do you think this sister-in-law is so obsessive about this?
I'd be curious to see how long she has been in that state of mind, with her really always believing the innocence, or she came to some, epiphany that he's innocent. So he's a charmer, and I don't know their relationship. I don't know if he's been writing her. I don't know but she's gotten sucked into it. So she's just abiding by that obsession, and it will be curious to see if all of a sudden he would say, okay, the jig is up, I did it, and this is why I did it, and I'll keep my mouth shut and stay away from Netflix now. Would she still believe it? So yeah, I mean, whether it be she's related to him by marriage or a family member or not, I mean, there are always going to be people who see your side and are willing to just overlook the evidence and just never believe it.
Peony Pink, our friend, coming to us from South Australia. Once again, lest you think we are not a global show. Final comment here. Kathy Barella, of course, his sister-in-law believes Scott. She did not live with him. There you go. On to some other true crime news of the week, and then we'll wrap it up on this beautiful Friday where there is a hurricane of sorts, a cyclone headed towards Hawaii. I hope I will say a special prayer for all my friends in the greater Hawaii area, including Catherine and my friend Phil and everyone else who's in that part of the world. So, Phil Waters, this is something that I know you guys are not surprised by anything, but this really was upsetting to me and pretty stunning. A North Carolina man with special needs is now dead after his caretaker allegedly left him alone in a hot vehicle for hours. This was reported just this past Tuesday. The victim, his name is Dontarius Batts. A call came in to 911. The person was later identified as 55-year-old Rogers Lee Ingy, allegedly telling them that he was responsible for the death of a person in his care who had been left in his vehicle. He worked at this home where this guy was a resident, and then he was also a custodian at another place, and he left this guy in the car. He went to check on him. This is what disturbs me. He left the windows up and the doors locked. He went to check on him, like between shifts at one place, and then when he got to the other place, whatever. He says in the 911 call, described as being emotionally distraught. He says, "I didn't think it was that hot today. I didn't check on him again. I forgot. I was working." According to First Weather Alert in that area, it was 81 degrees. A National Weather Service has warned that inside of a vehicle, it can heat up another 50 degrees. So that would put it at 131 degrees. Why the hell didn't this guy just leave the windows? If you're going to leave him in the car, why didn't you just leave the windows down? He had him locked in there with the windows up. Special needs, didn't know how to get out or couldn't get out. Any reaction to this story other than it's incredibly depressing?
You talking
Phil.
to me again?
Talking to you, Phil. Yeah. I mean, does this guy need to be, he hasn't been charged. Does this guy need to be, charged with some kind of,
just from what you read, I don't think so. What relationship was he to the,
he was, the person who died was a special needs 20-year-old, and he was at a home, and this guy was helping as his caretaker.
Okay. Well, this is the same kind of situation when people leave their babies in the car, people leave their dogs in the car, and they come back and they're dead because it's incredibly hot and so it's just, it's horrible. And it's something that these folks have got to live with for the rest of their lives. It's just a bad decision made at the time. Sometimes they just forget. I don't know how you forget you've got a kid in the car. But
by the way, my Bronco comes with an alarm, which I love. It lets you.
Oh, really?
Even if I leave like a bag on the seat, it dings and it says, "Please check the back seat." So
yeah, we've got a. My wife's car does that. Yeah, that's a new thing. But
Carol says,
I don't know. I think in this case, I don't see this guy getting charged. And what would be the point? It just looks like it's a horrific mistake. And what more punishing this guy for making a horrible, and he said he checked on him, right? He thought he was okay.
Yeah, at one point he said he looked like he went to check on him and looked like he was okay. Yeah.
Okay, well then, that's the mistake here was leaving him in the car, period.
Yeah. By the way, looks can be deceiving because IGG says Scott Duffy looks more like himself today, despite being sick. Wonder if he's done with his stressful work he was doing earlier in the month. Yes, he's done with that.
I look better sick.
Yeah, that's the moral. That's a moral story. All right, here's another fun story. A 9-year-old boy is dead after his mother, Scott Duffy, was allegedly driving under the influence and crashed in a head-on collision in Suffolk County. Her name, the mom, is Carrie Bedrick. She fled because she was wasted. Police pursue her, then realize it's too dangerous to pursue. They back off. She decides to cross over from a westbound lanes into eastbound lanes. The police, who are kind of behind, following from a long distance, apparently, eventually catch up and find her smashed as part of her car smashed as part of a 4-car crash. The 9-year-old child, they tried to revive him on scene. That was unsuccessful. What the hell is wrong with a mother who's drinking and driving, Scott Duffy? And she should be punished with the most severe weight of the justice system, I think. I think it's Suffolk County, New York, by the way. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, what was her first inclination? It was to run for her own self-preservation, and as opposed to coming to fruition or realization that I just did the most horrible thing, drinking and driving, drunk driving, and now all my attention should go to my 9-year-old since I'm okay. So yeah, I've seen it time and time again of DUIs, some of the most horrific, life altering throughout the world, and yet I don't think the law could be harsh enough, and yet people will still do plenty of bad things when they get behind a wheel. So it's yet just an inexplicably sad scenario.
Here we're going from bad to worse here. Phil, this one's for you. Then we'll have happy goodbyes. This is a couple now. They handcuff her 6-year-old boy with handcuffs and also bind his feet and then let the pit bull out, Phil. This happened in Savannah, not Georgia, but Savannah, Ohio. 911 is eventually called. The little boy is just referred to as DM in court records. His mother, her name is Angelina Rose Williams, and her boyfriend is Taylor Desiree Marvin Brown. The owner of the dog, Robert Mikulski. They've all been, by the way, this trio is exactly how you would picture this trio to look. All face tattoos and methed out and the whole deal. They've all been charged with felony endangering a child by administering corporal punishment. Phil, is this just an example of true evil exists in the world? A 6-year-old defenseless boy handcuffed, feet bound, and they let out a ferocious pit bull. I mean, what is going on?
And the purpose was to discipline this child?
Corporal punishment.
Well, that's pretty creative. Why not just use a paddle? But I'm not sure. I would be curious to know what the transgression was that caused them to think that this was the appropriate method to use.
That's a good point.
Not that there is an appropriate method. This is not appropriate in any sense, but I'm just curious to know what the transgression was that made them think this was the way to approach this discipline.
Yeah.
I mean, the children in our country are faced with such challenges, and it hurts my heart when I hear something like this.
Yeah.
And those people, I'm going to tell you, there's a special place in hell for those people.
Yeah. By the way, it doesn't take a rocket scientist when you see their mugshots to figure out they're probably addicted to a bunch of drugs. But that's obviously no excuse. Someone said endangering, it's torture, and I agree with you. That is definitely not endangering. It's like I don't know what it is. Now here's
No, that's the legal definition of what they're doing.
yeah. Here's a similar story, Scott Duffy. This is now a former NFL football player. We were just talking about OJ. This guy beat his girlfriend's daughter to death after making her exercise. He claimed that she was too chunky. The crazy thing is this guy only received a sentence of 10 years to life. I don't understand this. She, Lariah Davis, died in April of 2019 after being taken to a Las Vegas hospital with at least 100 bruises, including 20 broken ribs, laceration to her liver. That's what they believe killed her. The former NFL running back is a guy named Sierra Wood, who I'd never heard of. He was a star at Notre Dame University. He took an Alford plea. Scott Duffy, a couple questions. I mean, do we blame CTE for this? Because this guy was getting knocked in the head. Phil says no. Also, how the hell is this guy? I mean, he took an Alford plea. How's he getting 10 years to life? I mean, this guy could be out in 10 years for doing this. Your take on this, Scott Duffy?
Wow. Yeah. Shocking. It's child abuse to the extreme under the masking of being a good, getting a child into shape or whatever it is that you want to call it, or whatever it is in your head that makes up for it. And I believe there was also a very recent story of I think it made national news that kind of reminds me of the same exact type of individual whose own child, I think it was a 6-year-old, and kept putting him on a fast speed. Well, I don't even know the name of the machine, but obviously died as a result of the injuries.
This comment just made me laugh. It's just the world we live in today. Misdemeanor, doubling up on the antidepressants. So this one, it's crazy. Scott, we'll come right back to you on this one. Out of the pages of You Cannot Be Surprised, California family, they're now struggling. They're urging other parents to be cautious. They took their kid to a Japanese restaurant called Fujiyama. And they started to notice that their 2-year-old daughter was doing strange things, like slurring her speech. They then realized that she was served alcohol instead of the apple juice that they ordered. It was some sort of homemade cooking wine. Girl was incredibly drunk at just 2 years old. Her blood alcohol was well above the legal limit for an adult. Went to the ER, the whole deal. The restaurant has apologized for the mistake. Salinas police in Salinas or Salinas, California. I'm not sure which. I think I've heard it pronounced it they. Anyway, they are investigating. Should these restaurant owners be held responsible in a criminal manner for getting a 2-year-old wasted at a sushi dinner?
Oh, I would say that families should have anything they want. I think they should be the new owners of the restaurant. They should. I just can't imagine I just can't even imagine how the amount of wine versus apple juice. It's just it's staggering to me that first of all, just thinking back of my own kids, giving them whatever juice, whatever, and I mean, wine has quite a taste to it that you have to really kind of develop. As I would say, as my kids gone into drinking age, and I'll say, do you like this? Wine is not the first thing they like.
COE, I put up all these super chats that you're putting up right now. I'm on the ball. Go ahead, Scott Duffy.
So as a 2-year-old, really, to not just throw that sippy cup or whatever it is, it's just staggering. But yeah, I would say there's it's just
Well,
mind-boggling. And
at the very least, right here, revoke their liquor license.
Oh,
at the very
100%,
least,
without a doubt.
So on to our final story. Phil Waters, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most, how devastated were you to learn that Bennifer is breaking up once again? That would be Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez. How upset were you? Do you know that they are now getting divorced again?
I'm aware.
Mm.
On a scale,
Yeah.
I don't know that my response to that is even charted on any kind of a scale.
Scott Duffy, I got to say this. In the writing of my book, Surviving the Survivor, which is on sale everywhere, my mom, a year and a half ago, predicted that this marriage would never last, blaming it all on Ben Affleck, saying that he's saying that he's what Scott Peterson said he himself is. That's what Carm said Ben Affleck is. It rhymes with masshole. Like, so anyway, Carm does not like Ben Affleck. She thinks he's a bad person. That's Carm's take on Ben Affleck. I just wanted to end on this.
Look, it takes two to tango here. So I mean, she's been married 3 times, and
well, he said
he had the thing going on with Flip Diddy or Pit Flippy or whatever his freaking name was, right?
Yeah.
And on top of all the other stuff, so and I tell you what his mistake was. His mistake was dumping Jennifer Garner.
Yeah.
That was his mistake. They were married for 11 years. They've got, I think, 3 kids or something. And, that was his single biggest error there. And so getting hooked back up with what's her name after whatever they were together. Was she in that goofy movie that bombed?
It was the two of them.
Giggly or whatever that thing is called.
I think that's where they met. By the way, J-Lo's been married 5 times.
5 times. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, then I missed a couple. Yeah. But
by the way,
I can tell you how closely I followed her. But although I will say this, she was excellent in Selena.
Selena, there you go.
Which is really kind of got her took off. But she was really, really good in that movie. And that was, of course, that Selena's murder, that trial, they got to change the venue, and that trial actually was conducted in Houston. So
coming full circle here.
Yeah. So
we've got Phil reviewing movies now. This is amazing. Ben Affleck's excuse, Scott Duffy, was he didn't realize how much attention J-Lo gets. He wanted a quieter life. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like he was annoyed that there was paparazzi following them.
Which is funny because it wasn't, I mean, just before A-Rod, I think, was with her because of the attention she got.
Yes, he tweeted something out or said something that's been going viral. I haven't paid attention to it. But anyway, let's just play a final guessing game here. They're now selling their Beverly Hills mansion. Scott Duffy, do you care to take a guess at what the price tag is that they're selling it for? It's Gigli. But go ahead.
I would say $32 million.
Phil Waters, you have a guess at a number that they're now selling their Beverly Hills mansion for?
$20 million.
$68 million, and that does not include the 1,100 a day tax bill, first reported by the New York Post. Scott Duffy, how many square feet do you think a $68 million home is? Good question. You care to guess?
Slightly bigger than mine, I guess.
They probably could have lived at opposite ends of that place, never seen each other, and been just fine. That would have been the approach I would have taken.
I'll
stay at my end, and we'll have breakfast once a week together.
I could have a 75,000 square foot home, and all my kids and my 2 dogs would be sleeping on top of me, which is happening every night and why I don't sleep. But the COE says 11,000 square feet. Some people call her the Co. Co, you should buy it. The answer is it is 38,000 square feet. It sits on 5 acres and is described as a tasteful stunner with open floor plans, mountain views, a large pool. Phil, this is your domain. How many car garage do they have? How many cars does it fit? How many can it accommodate?
At that place?
You actually
I
going to
have
need
no idea. 10? I have no idea.
12 car garage. 12 car
Close.
garage.
We're close.
Now, Scott Duffy, how many bedrooms in this 38,000 square foot home?
Ooh, bedrooms.
This is an
Let's say
interesting stat, by the way. This one coming up right here.
25.
Good. I would guess the same thing. It's much lower. Phil, care to guess?
Number of bedrooms?
Yeah.
5.
Good guess, but too low. So it's got 12 bedrooms, but it has 24 bathrooms, 2 bathrooms per bedroom.
Nice.
Phil Waters, I must ask you, what would you do with 2 bathrooms in your bed in each of your bedrooms?
Well, I guess you do crap twice as much as you sleep, right? So
Never
This is
waited
all
long.
I've got.
I can understand. I guess. I mean, I guess. I don't know, man. I mean, it's got 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms in each bedroom.
2 bathrooms in each bedroom.
2 bathrooms in each bedroom. So I guess that's just further separation of whatever the relationship is, right? If you've got to have a separate bathroom. You know, my wife and I, we've got separate sinks in the same bathroom.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, I like that setup. I do like that setup.
Yeah, that sounds like who originally built this house?
Phil, I don't know. It was built in 2000. I do know that, so it's fairly modern.
I just wonder who the original owner, who had this house built, that they needed
Rich people.
2 bathrooms in each house.
Rich
The
people.
YMCA.
Yeah.
Who?
The YMCA.
YMCA.
Phil Waters, a final question for you. and then-
YMCA.
A final question for Phil Waters here. Ben Affleck, arguably one of the best known movie actors in the world. I think he's subpar as an actor, by the way.
I will say this.
That's just my
I
own.
read where in her filing that she has asked for no spousal support or whatever. They're going to go there separately.
Yep. They have no prenup. It's kind of crazy. I think she's much wealthier than he is, but it might be close.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Here's my question, Phil Waters, that only you could answer. Top A-list celebrities, both of them. Money coming out of their seams. He's a miserable, unhappy sack of you know what, and she's probably not much better. Does money not bring happiness, Phil? What's going on here? Why are they so unhappy? Would you be happy with a 38,000 square foot home?
Well, I always joke around about, these people that have a lot of money and all that stuff. Are they really happy? You bet they are. Of course they are. But they have no joy in their lives because everything centers around stuff that's all temporal. And so, you know what? They got no joy, man. I mean, I'm.
Do you really feel that way? Like, do you really think that they feel that way? But what do you mean they're happy, but they have no joy?
Well, because happy is a human emotion, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can be unhappy. I don't know anybody that can be unjoyful. So, they have moments of unhappiness, but are they happy? Yeah, sure they're happy. They got freaking a house with 38,000 square feet and 2 bathrooms and 12 bedrooms, and they've got 12 car garage, and they got all sorts of crap,
Yeah.
and it makes them happy to some degree. But again, it's all temporary. It can be gone in a moment. Can't take it with you. So I'd rather,
Scott Duffy just, coupling Phil's thought with the fact that Ben Affleck is also a notorious struggling with alcoholism. He's just not from what I understand, not a happy person. He's supposed to be miserable to be around. I'm just dumping on him because it's fun to dump on him. What do you think about this? I mean, oh, by the way, is this true? This might be true that they have 8 pools. Would 8 pools and 38,000 square? I mean, Scott, why would you not be happy with all that? Can you answer this for me?
Oh, I would be happy with that.
Like, let me just take one step back for 1 second. So say you're a 15-year-old young man, you want to be an actor. You say to yourself, you say, when I'm 45, I want to be married to the biggest pop star in the world. I want to have a 40,000 square foot home with 8 pools. And this is what they have. And they're both miserable. How do you explain it, Scott Duffy?
I I can't explain. That's why they're not happy, right? No matter everything they have. I wouldn't be saying at this particular age, I would say if that person made me happy and happened to be a movie star, that'd be a different story, as opposed to, these people, whoever they are, they're reaching for the stars and they haven't yet found whatever it is that many have.
See, I feel like the happiest people are like
got nothing.
No, I feel like they're like, people who have a purpose, like a school teacher who really loves what they do, brings them joy. They see kids grow. I think these are the happiest people. Let me reverse the question and then we'll say goodbye. Phil Waters, if whoever purchased, let's say you got $68 million, like they gave you the $68 million, what would you do with that? Would you buy a 50-car garage home? What would you do with $68 million, Phil Waters? How much would your life change?
I would buy the most expensive Ferrari in the world, which is about that much money. So
that's it. You'd be like one and done. You take all the money on one Ferrari?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
What would your wife? Hold on a second. What is a $68 million Ferrari? Like, what year is that?
I would take the. I have to look it up. I would take if somebody handed me $68 million. Is that the premise here?
That's a premise. Yes.
Okay. Well, the first thing I would do is I would tithe out of that. That's the first thing I would
do.
Do.
Say that again. You'd what?
I would tithe out of it.
Okay.
5 or 10.
Yeah.
10%.
Okay.
The biblical.
I got it.
That's what that'd be the first thing I would do. And so that others could benefit from that fortune. And then the rest of it would be purchase that Ferrari.
You think your wife would kick the crap out of you if you really did that? Because no, she wouldn't care.
No.
Wow.
No.
And what would you drive the Ferrari, or would you just keep it in like a place, like covered?
Well, I would drive it more selectively than I drive the ones I have now, certainly.
Yeah. Like, would you drive it in Midtown Manhattan?
No, I wouldn't drive any car in Midtown Manhattan.
I
wouldn't drive a Yugo in Midtown Manhattan.
I used to drive in Midtown Manhattan all the time. I kind of loved it. Scott Duffy, I must ask you the same question, and we'll get final thoughts. $68 million. How does your life change? Would you get front row Phillies season tickets, for example?
Yeah. Probably not Phillies, though I'm a Phillies fan. That's a lot of games I'd have to go to.
Yeah. Well, you could get a helicopter.
Okay. Yeah, get a helicopter.
By the way, I miss PSS, Philadelphia shoulder surgeon. Where are you? But yeah, I mean, let me ask you a different way. How dramatically would your life change with $68 million? Would I see you with gold-plated sneakers on?
I have thought of this question a lot, especially as I'll play around with the. I won't do Lotto. I think it's Lotto. Is it Lotto? The one that every once in a while will be almost $1 billion.
Yeah,
then I'll play. I will go and I'll just do $4. and then I do think for about 5 minutes, how will I spend it? Because I will win.
Yes. What's the answer?
I don't win, so
Let's say hypothetically you would. Let's say you did win. What would you do?
yeah, I think I would
What I'm
start with
asking is, would you stay in
yeah,
your
yeah.
home, or would you now flaunt your wealth?
Yeah, I know. I'd like to say because I'm at this point where it's not going to happen, and I've learned to accept it. That I would not change. That first of all, there would be no more bills. I would pay off family, friends' bills.
That's
Like I'll
very
do a
smart.
direct pay. I'm not so sure I'd give them all the money. I'd just say, give it to
Oh,
me.
God, you'd get a bunch of whose family members that you never knew you
I
had.
am off. 68 million is a lot.
Here's the
Um,
COE. Look at the
Follow you
COE.
on that. My brother
COE
Scott.
says she'd hire a producer and she
Yeah.
would get someone to help her do her 5 hours of carpool every day, plus invest in a built-in pool hose. Oh, I'll explain
I
that.
like the pool house. I do like that.
Ethel, the boxer, dogs have weird obsessions. Ethel has an absolute obsession with the hose. So you cannot. I know nothing about pools. I grew up in Jersey. The COE grew up in LA, so she knows about pools. Apparently, you can't let a pool get too low. So every once in a while, we have to fill up the pool with a hose. And every time
Mhm.
we do that, we have to get a new hose because Ethel immediately, she's so obsessed. She can't stop. She forces herself out of the house, destroys the hose. So that's why she says that. Anyway, I think it's time to wrap it up. I got to take my daughter to
Oh,
the
well, dude,
synagogue.
answer your Ferrari question.
Yes.
1963 Ferrari 250 GTO sold for $70 million in 2018.
Hold on. What year is that?
1963.
What was it for sale in 1963 for? Do you know what the sticker
It
price was?
sold for $70 million.
No, but I'm saying in 1963.
In 63, I have no idea. Probably, 63, it's all relative, probably 25, 30, 40,000 maybe. If that much in 63.
Imagine that investment. You bought that in 1963. Why is this car worth $70 million? I can't believe that any car
It's
would be
just
worth
it's a very rare Ferrari. There weren't many of them built. And, there's all sorts of values on the different types of Ferraris. And so this one is the mother of Ferraris in terms of what somebody was willing to pay for it.
Unbelievable. Phil, a quick final goodbye. What's your plan? Any parting words?
Oh, well, plans are Bible studies tonight, pizza night tomorrow night, and got a great weekend. We're going down to a birthday party for a guy that is called the Los Angeles hot rodder expert. He's 95 years old tomorrow, celebrating his birthday. Excuse me. And so we're going down in the Ferrari with the Paradise Cruisers to celebrate his birthday.
Ah, that's sweet.
So, we've got some little plans there. And then it's good to be back with you guys. It's been a while.
It has been a while.
We got snapped in pretty quick. So it was good. And I would just hope for all of our SDS Nation that they have a great weekend ahead of them and take joy in whatever you're doing.
I wish the same thing. Criminal Network, 1982 Datsun B210, followed by Kimmich. I had a 76 Datsun B210.
Nice.
Scott Duffy, you ever drive a Datsun?
I can't say that I have.
My dad had a red Dodge Dart. It was bright red with a black top, and I loved it. It was like a normal car back then, but I wish I had that today. Someone here with a comment about the Eagles. I would put the first 4 rows. I would buy the first 4 rows at an Eagles concert and sit there with my BFF. There you go. Tell everyone to back off. Scott Duffy, your final thoughts before we head out.
Yeah, it's move-in weekend for my daughter's final year, so she'll be fourth year student, a senior at college. So Sunday is moving day.
Wow, that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Are you? Is it a little? Teary eyed too? This occasion, knowing that.
I think at this point it's joy. She's
Very nice.
it is her fourth year. The first, it was tough the first year, but it's an hour away, so not far.
When my kids go to school, luckily I'll be 170 and I won't have a lot to worry about at that point. But everyone, love you, America.
$18,000.
Oh my!
That's
imagine that.
250 GTO cost in 1963.
Imagine, Scott Duffy. I'm gonna do this to you, Scott Duffy. Imagine your grandfather loved cars. He was in Philly, and in 1963, he saved up enough to buy that $18,000 car. He gives it to you, and today it's worth $70 million.
Yeah.
To get you a little upset that he didn't do this, your grandfather.
Take it on a high-speed chase. That's what I would do.
Love you, everybody. Love you, Philly. Love you, Houston. Love you, the Big Isle of Hawaii. Aloha till next week. We'll be back next week. Now she puts up the book stuff. See you later, everybody. It's a respect I give.
Aloha.